Hello and welcome to my channel. Today's video is on tocotrienols, which is an isoform of vitamin E, and CoQ10, the pharmacology of health. So you can find CoQ10 in many different dietary sources. You can find it in organ meat, whole grain, soybeans, soy milk, broccoli, nuts and seeds, fatty fish, strawberries, oranges, canola oil, lentils, tofu. So you can find CoQ10 in many different places, and if you go to your nearest vitamin store, you can get CoQ10 in a tablet or soft gel form. However, tocotrienols are a little bit harder to find when it comes to natural sources. You can get it from the annatto plant, which looks like this. It's also in palm oil and coconuts. However, those don't have the right mixtures of tocotrienol. So I think the best place to get it from is the annatto plant, or you can go to your nearest vitamin shop and try to get the pure forms of tocotrienol, specifically the gamma and delta forms, which we'll talk about later. So, tocotrienols and CoQ10 are naturally occurring compounds that help protect some of the fundamental biological systems that deteriorate as we age, like fibril homeostasis and mitochondrial function. So, when I say fibril homeostasis, I'm talking about the thrombus that form in your arteries and can clog up your arteries in your heart, or the fibrils that form in your tissues that can lead to cancer, or the fibrils that form in your brain that can cause plaques to form and lead to Alzheimer's and other types of brain diseases. So I wanted to make this video not only to teach people about these vitamins and how to use them, but also because you see a lot of videos on YouTube, including some of mine, about consciousness and very complicated mechanisms, quantum mechanisms. However, society as a whole, we don't even have vitamins down pat. We don't even understand vitamins completely, and we don't utilize them correctly in society. So let's pump the brakes on all the quantum stuff. And once we understand vitamins, then let's move forward. For instance, did you know there's 8 different forms of vitamin E? Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, tocotrienol, and tocopherols? Probably not. Most people don't understand that. And most people are ignorant of the fact that all these different forms of vitamin E have different pharmacology associated with them. So let's get down to it and let's continue so we can learn how to be healthy. So, why hasn't this developed before? Why haven't we understood what the role of vitamins, how to utilize them for health? How come it took? We've been knowing as a society about vitamin E for a long time, but it took until 2012 to understand that a certain form of vitamin E, the tocotrienol form, can be used for fatty liver disease. And now we're doing clinical trials on end-stage liver disease. So why has that taken so long to happen? And tocotrienols have also shown promise in cancer, cardiovascular disease, cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, neurological disorders, bone health, skin health, hair health, and inflammatory diseases. So tocotrienols work in a similar way as statins to lower cholesterol. So do you think the pharmaceutical companies and the pharmacists and all the doctors, do you think the medical schools are teaching people, making sure to teach people about these natural products that can lower cholesterol? No, because they want to sell statins. That is a marketing technique. They can't make money off natural forms of cholesterol lowering supplements like tocotrienols. That's something you're going to find at your local vitamin store. And it's probably not going to be pushed at GNC or anything like that, because GNC is also trying to push certain things that they're making money off of. So you're going to find it at your mom and pop vitamin stores, and they may or may not know about this research. And that's the best place to find this kind of stuff. And that's why it hasn't come out and been available to everyone, is because it's not very useful, and it can't be monetized by pharmaceutical companies, so they're not going to do this. And it shouldn't be too surprising because even in my hometown, they have, or not, this isn't my hometown, this isn't where I'm born, but where I live right now, there is a pharmacy that sells hamburgers in the pharmacy. So I think that's actually smart, but kind of not the most moral thing to do, because you have people going in there for statins and other cardiovascular medications like lisinopril. So you want them to eat a hamburger. You want to sell burgers at a pharmacy because you want them to continue to eat wrong and continue to be metabolically unhealthy, so that they're going to have to keep coming back to you and taking the statin so you can keep making money off of the pills you're selling them. So that's just kind of a microcosm, this little pharmacy, what they're doing. And people need to be aware of it because the pharmaceutical company will continue to do this to make money. That's just marketing. Marketing is very cutthroat, as most people know. Whatever you can do to increase your bottom line, you're going to do it. So let's learn how to be healthy. And just for some background, this is my most current paper in Nature Scientific Reports about gamma tocotrienol inhibition of galectin 3 expression, distribution, and oligomerization in highly metastatic breast cancer cells. So I do have some skin in the game. I am a scientist who studies tocotrienols and other things in the body, like some quantum mechanisms. If you are interested in that, that paper is called Chaos to Coherence, a Path to Molecular Organization. But I bet that's not going to be in society, and people aren't really going to be utilizing that information for another 50 years, maybe. But you can understand this paper and utilize it today, because you can go to the store and you can buy tocotrienols and you can get healthier, but you got to learn about them. You got to learn about tocotrienols and you got to learn about CoQ10, because they work together in a very good way for your health. And tocotrienols, because the way that they work, can sometimes lower CoQ10. So it's good to take CoQ10 with tocotrienols. They work, they have a synergistic effect together. That means they're better together than taking either one of them separately. It's not additive, it's like multiplying each other. So let's continue. So again, there's 8 different forms of vitamin E: tocotrienols and tocopherols, and in each group you have alpha, beta, gamma, delta. Tocotrienols have the same chromanol antioxidant head group, which is right here, found on tocopherols, but their hydrocarbon side chain contains 3 double bonds, which you can see 1, 2, 3 right here on tocotrienols. That is not on tocopherols. So that makes their mechanism of action in the body different from tocopherols. Experimental research suggests that tocotrienols can influence NF-kappa B signaling. That has to do with inflammation, the mevalonate pathway, lipid metabolism, oxidative stress, inflammatory signaling, apoptosis, angiogenesis, and cellular stress responses. And all of these are associated with galectin 3, and that's why I've been doing research on galectin 3. So tocotrienols have shown promise for a lot of different disease states in the brain, to reduce the risk of cancer, heart health, GI health, bone health, skin health, and many other disease states and preventative measures that are good for a healthy body. So let's understand where's the best place to get tocotrienols. Because the thing is that tocopherols can actually inhibit the absorption of tocotrienols. So that's why it's not really good just to rely on rice or palm to get your tocotrienols, because they have a lot of tocopherols shown in green right here. So rice has 50% tocopherols, palm has 25% tocopherols, and those tocopherols are going to inhibit the absorption of the tocotrienols. So they're not there. So if you have tocopherols in your stomach and your GI tract, it's going to inhibit the tocotrienols from actually being absorbed and getting into your blood for systemic circulation. So the tocotrienols basically aren't going to work. They're going to just be excreted with everything else in your GI tract. So you don't want to rely on rice or palm for your tocotrienols, because the tocopherols are going to inhibit it. And that's kind of muddied the waters in the past in clinical trials and research, because people who tried using rice and palm didn't understand why the tocotrienols weren't working the same as when they isolated the tocotrienols and used it in cells. And at least one of the reasons for that is because they use rice and palm oil, and that tocopherols were inhibiting the tocotrienols. That's why whenever you buy a supplement of tocotrienols, you want to make sure it's from the annatto plant. That looks like this again, because it's 100% pure delta and gamma tocotrienols. Delta is the most potent form of tocotrienol, and gamma is a little less potent than delta. However, it has more bioavailability, so it'll get more biodistribution in all of your tissues. And what's good is that the annatto plant has delta and gamma tocotrienols at about a 9-to-1 ratio. So it's the best natural place to get your tocotrienols. So if you're buying a supplement, make sure it's from the annatto plant if you're interested in tocotrienols. But if for some reason you want a mix of tocopherols and tocotrienols, then palm and rice are fine. So again, alpha tocopherol may interfere with certain biological effects, tissue accumulation and metabolism of tocotrienols, and the absorption of tocotrienols. Delta and gamma tocotrienol are also among the tocotrienol isoforms most extensively investigated for metabolic, inflammatory, cardiovascular, and anti-cancer effects. And I have done some of the studies on the anti-cancer effects. So now let's talk about coenzyme Q10, CoQ10. So CoQ10 is ubiquinone, which has these hydroxyl groups, which is the oxygen with the hydrogen that you can see right here, that are attached to the aromatic ring, and it's metabolized into ubiquinol, the oxidized form, which just means that these hydrogens were taken off. So this is an interesting note, because if you're below 40 years old, then you're probably fine taking CoQ10, just the ubiquinone. But if you're over 40, your body probably has stopped metabolizing the ubiquinone into ubiquinol. So whenever you go to the vitamin store, you need to get the ubiquinol form. And if you go to any vitamin store, they'll probably have both forms for you to purchase. But you have to understand your age, your metabolism, and what you need. However, even if you're below 40 and you have liver issues, then you might still want to purchase the ubiquinol form. So how does CoQ10 work? CoQ10 is a component of the mitochondrial inner membrane and carries electrons from complex 1 and 2 right here to complex 3. So it's an electron carrier. That's what CoQ10 is. So it's one of the molecules that carries electrons in the mitochondria in the electron transport chain, and that is a vital cellular mechanism to produce ATP through oxidative phosphorylation. So, and oxidative phosphorylation in the electron transport chain, if you want to get more into the biological mechanism of that, research the citric acid cycle so you can learn all about that. And that's important. Why are these things important to learn about? Because that's how all of your energy in your body is made, ATP. Every cell in your whole body uses ATP for energy, the main source of energy, and the main source of energy that produces all that ATP is the mitochondria. That's what produces the most. You also have glycolysis, but the mitochondria through oxidative phosphorylation produces the most ATP, the most energy for your body. So you want the most energy for your body so that the mitochondria is happy and doing and functioning correctly, so the interior of your cells have all the energy it needs. And then you also don't want fibers to form outside of the cells, and that's why you need to take tocotrienols. And these are both just vitamins. So CoQ10 and tocotrienols together. CoQ10 is good for brain health. Studies have suggested that ubiquinol supports healthy neurological and brain function. Fertility, ubiquinol, CoQ10 plays a key role in sperm cell energy production and motility. Heart health, several studies on CoQ10 show that it supports heart health by helping circulation and healthy cholesterol profile, and that is something that also tocotrienol does. And it's also an antioxidant, just like tocotrienol. So tocotrienol also helps with circulation, blood sugar, heart health, cholesterol, and right here you can see all the anti-cancer effects it has in cancer. So it's anti-metastasis. It's shown to prevent the spread of cancer, the migration of cancer cells. It's an antioxidant, so it'll decrease the oxidation of cancer DNA, which will decrease how much mutations it has. Apoptosis, it causes apoptosis in cancer cells. That means it causes the cancer cells to die. Cell cycle arrest, so they'll stop growing. And anti-angiogenesis, so the tumors won't be able to grow blood vessels and get more nutrients and continue to grow. So tocotrienols has a lot of different mechanisms against cancer. So also both of these have been shown to help for liver disease. Liver disease is two things that are part of liver disease is mitochondrial dysfunction, which I've already explained how CoQ10 helps, and then fibrosis, which I've explained how tocotrienols help to decrease those fibers that are accumulating outside the cell. That can help with heart health, memory, liver disease. It can help with cancer. It can help with many different things. And I've also had some people ask me, well, whenever you take this, aren't you worried about it decreasing cholesterol? Because I'm seeing everywhere on YouTube and stuff that your brain needs so, and it's mostly cholesterol. Okay, while that's true, your brain doesn't rely on systemic circulation of cholesterol in your bloodstream made by your liver, because your brain can make its own cholesterol. So usually the accumulation of cholesterol in your bloodstream from your liver, your systemic cholesterol, usually that plays a negative role because it's usually too high and plays a negative role on your brain, and your brain already makes its own cholesterol. So that's not really true. Don't worry about that. But whenever you are taking these two supplements, it's always good to talk to your doctor, mainly whatever doctor is in charge of your cardiovascular medications, because if you're already on statins or blood thinners or blood pressure medication, then maybe getting on these supplements and eating right might let you decrease those medications that you're on for your circulatory system. So, of course, you need to talk to your doctor about this. But I promise you, if you go talk to your doctor and tell them you're going to eat better and take these two vitamins, they're going to be so surprised that you're taking the right step yourself and encourage you to do so. And I know that from experience, I know that from helping family members do this same thing. So why tocotrienols and CoQ10 are interesting together? Tocotrienols primarily influence membrane biology, lipid peroxidation, inflammatory signaling, lipid metabolism, and cellular stress responses, while CoQ10 participates directly in mitochondrial electron transport and ATP production. In simple terms, tocotrienols can help protect and regulate the cellular environment, while CoQ10 supports the energetic machinery that powers it. There is overlap between them, particularly in redox and membrane biology, but their mechanisms are distinct. So, one way you can see this visually, and what led me throughout the past 12 years doing research on stuff like this, is these are both breast cancer cells, and these are just control breast cancer cells. And of course, if you read my papers, I have treatments with tocotrienols that show these mechanisms are inhibited. However, I just want to show you that when cells are dysfunctioning inside of your body and cancer is being induced, you have increase in fibers outside of the cells. So all these red things right here are fibers, and all this green stuff right here is galectin 3, which acts as a framework or scaffolding for these fibers outside of the cell. And the blue in both pictures is just the nuclear DNA. It's a nuclear counterstain. So tocotrienols decrease these fibers. So tocotrienols help outside the cell, and CoQ10 will help inside the cell, which you can see also in these control breast cancer cells. Control just means I didn't do any treatment to them. I'm just visualizing what they look like normally. You have the normal DNA in the chromosomes, but you also have the DNA in the mitochondria, which you can see right here. These little dots everywhere on the outside of the cell, close to the actin cytoskeleton. All those little blue dots are the mitochondria. So, whenever you have metastatic cancer, sometimes you have enlarged mitochondria and a lot of fiber formations outside of the cell. So this is in breast cancer, but this happens in many other disease conditions. And one way you can prevent and help your cells not turning into this is CoQ10 to help your mitochondria and tocotrienols to help the protein expression and the protein interactions outside of the cell. And they both have more mechanisms, but this gives you a general idea. So the take home here is, how do we preserve the ability of our cells to produce energy, protect their membranes, regulate inflammation, and maintain metabolic homeostasis as we grow older? You need to eat right, of course. So don't eat processed meats. Eat vegetables and fruits. Find the ones you like. There are some tasty ones. Exercise. You don't have to do anything crazy. Just start off with a 30-minute walk every day and get some sun. It doesn't have to be something extreme. You don't have to pay for a new membership to, a fitness place, a fitness company. You can just do something simple as taking a walk every day, and that will be good for your metabolism. And also learning the vital nutrients that your body needs. So the vitamins, learn, what medications you're taking and what vitamins could be used to lower how much of those medications you need and maybe prevent some of the diseases that run in your family. So it's pretty simple how to be healthy, but it's not taught a lot in medical school, pharmacy school, nursing school. Usually it's just an elective if you want to take a natural products course. And the reason for that is most people don't listen. So it's good to learn this stuff. It'll help you have a healthier life and be more productive and be happier. So look into this stuff. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I can make more videos about vitamins. That's what I plan to do in the future. So you have a good day.